Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
So what I was thinking of doing today is I have this Mad Cat that I worked on. I built it a few years ago and obviously didn't finish painting it, which is sadly very common. And I have miniatures all over the place that I get a good idea, start doing something, and then don't finish. So it keeps me from getting bored, but it also causes this problem of stuff just doesn't get finished. All right, a little louder. All right, let me adjust my volume 1 second. All right, the One Dragon, how does that sound?
It sounds okay.
Well, you should be able to hear me fine, Augustin. He's in the stream trying to see how that audio is coming through. All right, he says better. Great. So anyway, I built this and I base coated it. Obviously, I did the accent colors. It's dark gray and red just to start out, and then I put a black wash over everything. So, and in between there, I did a clear coat too, so it's been just protected and not doing anything. And I figure I'm gonna do some work with oils on this if folks want to see that. If not, that's fine. I've also got some. I didn't put them on a base yet, or at least on a mount yet. But these are old metal elementals because I don't have any of the new ones yet. I thought I could do a wolf scheme, Wolf Alpha Galaxy, some forest green, and some tan, and I might be able to do both of these while we're working. I've also got basically a warm-up / demonstration griffin. I just painted a few things on here. One was for the video, and one was for a stream where I did some oil highlights here on the panels just to demonstrate that on a stream. I can work on that. And I've also got this tank here that is basically the same thing. I've painted it for the most part. I'll have to adjust the white balance on here if that's something that's going to be on screen. But other than that, good morning. Mike and Edward, New Mexico. Yes, the plan is that any streaming content that I'm able to download or grab by one way or the other, if I can get it, it's going to get uploaded onto the YouTube channel at some point. Hopefully soon, but get time being allowed. Since I wanted to start with these oils and no one seems to be complaining about me doing it, I'm going to do that. Some odorless mineral spirits here that I keep in a jar at my desk because that's what I do. Yeah, no worries. No worries. Well, I like the content too. Let me see if I can pull this shot back a little bit here. Might be a little too much on the zoom. I just don't want to be off frame with y'all. So I've got my odorless mineral spirits. I've got some synthetic dedicated oil brushes just because natural brushes and odorless mineral spirits will wear out really fast. And I've been using these MIG oil brushers. So my plan is to do the red after the gray, and my thought is, and this is my first time doing this, so this is why I'm talking through it a little bit, is that if I get any of the gray on some of the red, it'll be easy to go back over that, and the gray is much more dominant. So if I'm brushing around with the gray and I get it on the red, no big deal, I can even wipe it off a little bit. But if I do the red and then I start working on the gray and it smears onto the gray, then I'm going to have a problem. So that's my plan anyway. We'll see how it goes. I don't always have the best ideas, but I at least have some ideas. I'm going to be using this medium gray, and I think this light flesh eventually. I'm going to see how this medium gray plays out before I start lightening up the color. So you shake these up, and it's got this own little like goofy brush on here, which would be good if you're doing bigger models, but they're not good for painting onto miniatures. Get a few brush loads onto my palette paper here. Augustin, how's the weather over there in España today?
We are having a huge heat wave.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're on fire.
Any particular synthetic brushes? These are... this is a artisan shop. I think you can get these on Amazon. There's a whole set of them. I have a bunch. And then this is some generic beater brush. It's about 1/8 of an inch wide. It's just a flat brush. And then I think this one is so old that half of the finish is worn off, but it says royal gold on it. So I'm assuming it's a synthetic, like Taklon style brush. Nothing expensive, because oil brushing or oil work is, like I said, a little bit rough on brushes. So I like to apply with my fine tip brush. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to take a little bit of odorless mineral spirits and put some in the mix here that I've got, just to kind of thin out that gray oil a little bit. And I just have a paper towel handy to take off most of the paint initially, just because I've loaded the brush up a little bit and I don't want all that oil on the brush, and then I'll start working with just the little bit that I need. Augustin, looks like you got some folks chatting in chat there with you.
I have some friends trying to contact the Twitch.
Oh, okay.
I'm sending them the links.
Okay, great. So the idea behind this is you put the oil on the highlighted areas where you, in general, where you want it to go, and then we'll smooth it out with a brush that doesn't have anything on it. Now this is first thing in the morning for me. I stayed up late, I am tired, and I didn't sleep as long as I would have. Well, I slept longer than I should have to start this in time, or at least close to it, but I also was up way too late last night, so this will be fun once the coffee kicks in. So right now I'm just picking out areas that I want to have the highlight, because the scheme is a flat dark gray. So I'm just going to go to areas where I know there'd be some light that would definitely have made it onto the surfaces. And then some of those areas that are kind of recessed back, I just put a little bit, because I want something, but I'm not really going to focus on those having a whole bunch of highlight. And that's pretty good. I've got about 9 or 10 areas there. And then ideally, you use the biggest brush that you can, but because I'm not sure about getting this on the red, I'm going to probably just use this smaller brush to blend with quite a bit. So we'll see how it goes. So just using a gentle touch, I'm just convincing the paint to go out towards the edge. Basically just smudging it, if you will. So this is why it's rough on brushes, is you're painting with the brush, but it's not really the way a brush was designed to be used necessarily. But hey, I use all kinds of stuff for things that they're not designed to be used for. Do the hard to reach areas first. How's the stream doing, guys? I was worried about my bandwidth and dropped frames, but hopefully it's performing at least somewhat. I was going to do 1080p, but that was seeming to cause a lot of problems last night, and it was just not acting up this morning as well. Good so far. Excellent. Excellent. Oh, I was going to ask chat, is there a background audio music playing? I have it muted for myself, but I wanted to see if anybody else could hear it. It's supposed to be playing, but that doesn't mean that it will be. No music. All right. Oh, there is music in here. Okay. Sorry, I just adjusted the volume there. If I just made it too loud, please let me know and I'll put it back. I just wanted to have something in the background, so yeah, it's not Flock of Seagulls. It's for sure. It's not anything that's. Oh. Smart is now following. Thanks for the follow. Okay, great. Good, that's what I was hoping for. All these things I had to learn last minute because I don't do this regularly and I didn't want it to suck. So, the question about the oils, yes, the oils take anywhere from a day to 2 days to completely dry. That doesn't mean you can't do anything with them in between then. It's just if you were to go and smudge it with your hand after, you know, however long, a short time anyway, it would definitely not stay on the model. So I've got my mineral spirits open again. I've dipped my brush in just to there's a couple areas on this side over here that it got a little bit too far for me, so I'm just going to go in and clean it up a little. You could do this with Q-tips or whatever. I'm just using a spare brush. Because I want to bring back some of that gray, because I want it a little bit less bright. So I'm actually basically it's like using an eraser on a pencil drawing and using the eraser to smooth out a few things. All right. Still a little bit bright on that side panel there. It just got a little bit away from me, that's all. The great thing with oils is that you can really, that's the benefit of them being not drying very quickly at all, is that you have a lot of time to work with them. And you can obviously layer them, you can do all kinds of things, but again, you just have to be cognizant of the fact that they just don't dry the same way as a acrylic paint would. Just going in and smoothing a few things out. I've got kind of like the hint of mineral spirits on my brush, so it's moving things a little bit, which is really all I want. I don't want to do big movements, but I do want to make some changes still. Yep, you can do oils on top of anything. It's a lot of folks will recommend doing a clear coat, like an enamel clear coat over it, but it's actually not necessary. The odorless mineral spirits won't react with, at least most won't react with acrylic paint. There's a video on YouTube that I watched recently, and I watched the guy, and he basically proved it by putting, he had 2 pieces that he had painted, and he put odorless mineral spirits on one that he had painted the same way, and then water on the other one, just to show that it didn't do anything. So now that doesn't mean it won't always not do anything. I guess if you get a surface wet enough over time, you can reactivate the paint. But so that's maybe where you're looking at that benefit, is that it's tougher, it's stronger, and then also later on, if you've got a clear coat of enamel on there and you want to do like a oil wash, when you're using, say, a Q-tip and you're doing this to kind of get all the raised areas off, essentially you're creating friction, and you could wear down some of the paint and things like that if you were doing that. So that might be another benefit to that, but I don't really do a whole lot with oils just yet, but I am getting into it. So oils, if you talk to Wonder Gecko, Dale, he'll tell you oils are great because it just saves a ton of time for the amount of work that you put in for the result that you get in both a time and skill level there. Then he'll tell you that's the way to go about doing it. But really, it's, if you like the way they look, just like with anything, if you like the way it looks, then you should go that route. If you don't like how they look, because some people don't, or it's just not the style that you're after, then it's probably not for you. Augustine, you still working some technical issues there?
It stopped for a moment, the Twitch, but it is working now well.
Okay. Have you been working with oils at all?
Yeah. I used this oils, and I used acrylic coat between the acrylic and the oils.
Mm-hmm.
And you are correct. There's no problem without using the clear coat. And even using the clear coat creates you a new problem. If you use too much thinner, the thinner will create a white zone of the clear coat. We get a rugged texture, and we look like a bleach stain.
Oh wow, that's good to know. I don't want that.
Also, oils are some of the best ways to paint a good-looking black, fast and easy.
Oh yeah. The black that I did on the Griffin that I showed at the beginning of the stream, which I can do that real quick. Yeah, so this is just black primer, and then I did gray and a little bit of buff on there, and it took, I don't know, 5 minutes of demonstration to get all that on there. Now, it's not perfect because I was kind of in the middle. It was ad hoc. I wasn't planning on teaching it, but it definitely makes the black, you're highlighting the black, and it makes it look good, I think. So if you're using gray. Rolanding HQ, this is not Aiden's. This is the metal sculpt, the newest metal sculpt that I took and modified to be the E variant with the ATM missile launchers, and I cut the barrels down because I think it only has a large laser in each arm, or it could be a large pulse laser. I don't remember. I just know it had 2 ATM 9s. So, and then it's got a tag designator right under the nose there. So as you can see, I've done the arm. And since I could do the whole model, but I want to do the red to see how it turns out before I do the whole thing. Because I'm impatient. So I'm going to put some red here and see how it looks. I'm going to use red and orange because I want to see if that red's not bright enough. I'm going to add just a little bit of orange to it to lighten it up. I haven't used either of these colors yet either, so we'll see how it goes. And when Dale does oils, I'm not sure about if Kevin too, he'll put it on there and he'll use the brush to kind of brush it around and spread out the color. I'm being much more careful about this right now, but I wish I was able to do that. I think that's not going to be bright enough. Yeah, this is a Hell's Horses Alpha Galaxy, so it's flat gray and red. I'm going to add a little bit of orange to it. So I put the red down and now I'm putting a little bit of orange on there. A little red in the mix. So that's the great thing about oils, is you can just basically mix on the palette, mix on the miniature, mix on your brush. You've got all kinds of blending options. It really does give you a whole lot of flexibility, and there's really no wrong answer in that you can just wipe it away. So again, I could take some mineral spirits and a Q-tip and just wipe all this off and it would go back to being this dark red. I'll do this upper arm piece too. So I'm just putting a little red on, and I just go and dip my brush in a little bit of orange and just throw a little bit of that right in the mix with the rest of it. We'll see what we get. Don't want to use the big brush. I'm really trying to keep the red off of the gray. If I get it on there, that's fine. I'll take it off. But this is where I was talking about. I can't really just do the same process that with a bigger brush and a little bit less careful. There we go. Red and gray. At least on the left arm. Getting some freezing on the video. Yeah, it's probably my service provider. I tried multiple times to fix that, and I'm showing a few drop frames. I'm at 720 for the output. I apologize. I wish there was something I could do to fix it, but anything less than 720 and it's going to be grainy and hard for y'all to see what I'm doing. Just taking a little bit of orange here and popping a little bit of this upper edge. Because why not? I don't really care about the gun barrel because I can paint that independently without oils. But I care about this other edge that I did all the gray on. Alright, what do you guys think?
It looks lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with the buffering. Let me see if I can find out. I was doing a speed test last night, and everything was really fast. After I was done streaming, it showed me how fast everything was. And then, but during the test, it was like everybody and their brother was using the internet at the exact same time. So, it's the way it seems to go. I think Friday night and people streaming and all that kind of stuff definitely didn't help my ability to check the stream. So give me one moment here. I'm going to check the status. Oh yeah. Upload speed right now is about half of what it should be. Good times. All right. So do you guys want to see me paint more of this, or do you want me to move on to something different? You guys just want to talk to Augustin? I'll do whatever. I'll keep going, or I can move on to something else. Oh, thank you, Draco Frisco. I'm just going to keep going because why not? I'm right here and I got the oils out already. Maybe I'll get a little faster. Maybe I'll take the red paint off my brush before I put it on the gray. It's not a mistake unless somebody notices and you let it stay that way. That was just an inconvenient misstep. Augustine, did you get a chance to look at the new Ilclan release that came out last night? I haven't yet, but just curious if you had.
Yeah, the Golden Century trio is quite nice, and the area recognition is very good. They have very good news regarding some beloved designs like the Woodsman. Now it's on production again, so you can play it in a modern combat.
Nice.
Yeah, and they have new versions, new configurations of only mechs like the Lupus and the Woodsman and some other mechs. It's quite nice. I recommend it.
Yeah, I was up so late last night. I wanted to look at it. I wanted to be able to talk about it today, but I was dealing with technical issues. So, all right, folks say to keep going, so I'm going to keep going for a little bit. Now I'm using the bigger brush just because I can, because there's no red in this area. I'm just, like I said, smudging the paint. And I'll hit that round surface there on the side of the torso so that you can see a rounded surface. I can even do the red as well if I get the whole torso area done, but and again, this first round of highlights doesn't mean it'll be the only round of highlights. You can go back in and reinforce it, hit it with a little bit of different color. And while it's even on the miniature, like I could go in on this area here, and let me get rid of that red. I go in on this area right here with a lighter color and blend that in now if I wanted to, or I could wait. It's nice that there's a lot of options. So I'm going to probably turn my brush here. Just pushing it to the area that I want brighter. And it's a little bit of a back and forth push and pull until you get the intensity and the dispersion, I guess. Disbursement. I don't know if that's a actual word, but it does have a clear coat on it, so I'm trying to block the glare a little bit, but you can see there's the post oil highlighted side, and there's the nothing on it side. You can't beat that, man. That's so much quicker than wet blending, so much quicker than doing a lot of other techniques, and you get a real nice result. And you can go in with oils and you can darken. You don't just have to highlight. So I could go in with a darker gray, and example of that is this guy right here. Some people have seen this one. So on this, the base color for this guy was primer, like a brown primer. I didn't put a base coat acrylic on it at all. So from that base primer of it was, like I said, a medium brown or so, I just built up the oils. So all this highlighting, all of the panel highlights, all of its oils and edge highlighting. There's no base coat of acrylic paint unless you count the primer, but it's a primer. It's an acrylic primer, but you see what I'm saying? So you could work off of a primer color if you want, just like I said with this Griffin here. That's just black primer. You know, if I did the whole miniature that way with the gray, it would look like black highlighted with gray. So lots of options. And then if what I was getting at with the darken is that in a lot of these areas where there's some heavier shadows, it is a combination. Hey, Daring One, thanks for the follow. The shadow areas here, a lot of them are a wash or a darker brown oil that I brushed in. Not obviously at the same time, because the oil and water acrylic won't work out, but that's So between zenithal highlighting with shadows, reinforcing the shadows with the oils, washing things to get those real deep shadows in the recesses, you can get real nice results. You just have to be patient with oils. That's the thing, is that if you plan it out and you're doing a bunch of things, or you kind of work on one thing and come back to it, especially if you have to let the whole thing dry for a little bit, it's awesome. So it allows you to kind of work on a lot of things at once, or you can even batch paint with them. So anyway. Excellent. Augustin, what are you working on? What's your latest project?
I'm painting a battle axe.
Okay.
It's Robinson Rangers.
Which unit?
And
Robinson Rangers?
Robinson Rangers. It seems that in the fluff of the original battle axe, the last time it was used was when the Kurita conquered Robinson the first time.
Okay.
And they were used as a last dismissal, so I will depict the last battle.
Nice.
Yeah.
A little more on there. And these oil highlights, it's just really cool. I mean, obviously you can pick the upper edges and do the whole, this is where the highlight would be thing. You can edge highlight with them. You don't have to just blend them all. I can just keep that if I wanted. But now I'm just picking out areas I want a little brighter. Putting a little bit of the oil on there. We're gonna hit this pretty quick. I do tend to let it sit on the miniature for a little bit at least, just to kind of settle. I know it's not drying in the traditional sense of drying, but it makes me feel better, so that's what I do. A little more here. Steel City Wolf, thanks for the follow. You have a really cool bright Jade Falcon green one. Yeah. I can't take any sort of credit away from Dale, aka Wonder Gecko. His greens are on point when it comes to using oils. I did two mechs in green, and they didn't look nearly as good as his do for the amount of time and effort he puts into it. It makes me feel like, oh wow, I spent hours on this and you did that in like an hour. So practice, techniques, all that stuff. So it's great that we get together, and chat and share techniques and ideas so that we all make each other better painters overall. And we also kind of, it's friendly, but it's like, if I paint something one way and then someone else wants to paint something the same way because they really like how it turned out, and so on and so forth, or vice versa. I'll see somebody paint something and I'll try to copy them and do it, make it my own style maybe, but I'm inspired by it. I'm challenged by it. I was like, that makes me want to be better. So it's a good group of folks to be involved with. Even the ones in Spain.
Especially the ones in Spain.
Especially, you gotta look out for those guys most of the time, but you've been all right. Now you can see me putting my finger on my miniature here. That's something you got to get away from if you're doing oils. Like right now, there's nothing on there, but if I was doing it on this side and I have my hand right here, all I'd be doing is smudging the paint. So you really have to be. So again, I'm just trying to let you know. I wouldn't know about it if I hadn't done it already and had to go back and fix a bunch of things on a different miniature, but just thought I'd share in the interest of letting people learn from my mistakes, even if I'm not actually making that mistake at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I see people that'll, they'll hold their miniature, and so I'll do one of two things. Mike, this is hot glue. I just low temp hot glue right to the bottom of a metal base, not plastic. You can have funky things happen with plastic, and if not that, I feel pretty proud of myself that I found a absolutely useful way to use these old stupid Citadel paint bottles. This is just poster tack. This this blue stick stuff. You hang like posters on walls and stuff, and then I just stick them on. You got to kind of work it a little bit and get it warm, but it'll hold the metal miniatures really well. So if you don't have a specific holder or you don't have a base on it, so for instance, example, I should say this Griffin doesn't have a base on it, but I stuck his feet onto the blue tack and he's not going anywhere. But even then, like if you rest your hands, like I was saying, you can run into some oops, I wish I wouldn't have done that moments. How long till it's dry? Man, I'm just gonna call you Mang. About a day to 2 days. So you can put it up on a shelf and go to lunch and come back to it and work it if you want. Also, you could put it up on a shelf, forget that it's still wet, touch it, and mess it up. So and again, I say mess up. It was just, you'll undo some of the work that you were trying to do. So no, not plus, either or, Mike. Either or, the blue tack or the low temp hot glue, one or the other. Now the blue tack, obviously taking them off is easy. You just work it and pull it off. This, to get these off, these things are secure. This is why this is the downside to this, is I know it's not going to fall off. Well, it shouldn't fall off, but I have had a couple. Is I have to pry it off. I have a thin sculpting, like rounded blade tube tool that I wedge in there and pop it off. So it can be a little hectic, especially if it's more of a fragile model. So this is what I used to do. This is basically what I do now. I don't really use the glue unless I absolutely have to. Like if it's a really heavy model, then yeah, because this stuff just won't hold it, and I'll be holding it this way and it'll fall off. It'll, whatever. But I drop just about every model I have, so I just accept the fact that it doesn't matter what I do. I'm gonna end up dropping it. Dull coat, some folks will say 4 hours, but I like to, first off, I just use an enamel coat. So dull coat is fine. If you airbrush, I recommend you put an enamel coat over it first. But I like to let mine sit at least overnight. I've had no problems whatsoever with any of the oils I've worked with letting them dry overnight and the next day putting a clear coat and then moving on, either to finish with a dull coat or to paint something else. Yeah, 2 days would be like, oh yeah, it's absolutely dry. And really that's for the thickness of paint that's being applied. If you cake it on there, no, it won't be, because I've had paint sit on my palette for a couple days because it's much thicker on my palette that was still wet several days later. Okay, so, but when we're just barely putting a thin layer on a miniature, it'll dry within 2 days. Almost guaranteed it'll dry within 2 days. So, like I said, if I was not talking right now and I was just pounding this thing out, it would be done by now. I would be done with the gray and the red. So, and we've been streaming for about 45 minutes. So it's super quick. CJ Ryan Key, all right, thanks for the follow. It's super quick, but like I said, the price is the post paint weight. And so if you're wanting to race and get through and get something done, this isn't the way to do it. But if you want really cool highlights without a whole lot of work, and you can wait a couple days and come back to it if you're doing a unit or whatever, then it's really a nice way to go about getting it done. Have a good one, Mike. Thanks for hanging out for a little bit. Paint bravely. Yeah. Well, I'm doing it whether I'm here now, and no one wants to watch me talk about all the stuff I didn't have ready to paint on the stream, so So yeah, I can keep going. We can base coat some elementals and then work on some of that. I can paint checkers on this guy if you really want. There's a few things we can go with. We can just chat with people. Check Discord here, see if it's still us. Okay. cool. I'm sorry about the drop rate, guys. I wish there was something I could do about it. I'm doing the best I can and have it be at least somewhat visible for you. Where you have problems is painting cockpits. Oops, sorry. Drake and Frisco, where you have problems is painting cockpits. Have you gone over to the YouTube channel, the Camo Specs Online YouTube channel, and seen the demonstration I did just recently on curved cockpit jeweling? And is it me, or is like every other person's name in this chat room a Kurita fan? Just noticed that. I don't know if I want to talk to y'all. I'm joking and being completely not serious. It's not a thing. It's fun. Interested in the elementals. Any specific challenges in painting something that small? Absolutely. The thing I notice people trying to do is one or the other. Is they try to paint everything on it. Let me put this guy on a thing here since we're going to talk about him. They try to paint everything, which you can't. It's just too small. Or they just skip a bunch of stuff and then it doesn't look right because it looks like a little glob. So you Kurita, they stink. So the fine line between the two is knowing, or learning, I should say, what to pick out and what to ignore. So these are Haku Hellhound, thanks for the follow. So these battle armor here, I've hit the areas that are white and I've hit the areas that are dark, and they're basically done. I was going to add a couple decals and do some other things to them, but there's not a lot to them that you can go beyond this. Now, that's not to say that you could get in there with some real fine details, but at this scale, you're going to lose out on that. And then, like I said, if you try to just hit it with an overbrush and just kind of hit some of the highlights, you're going to be left with a bunch of black. The color's not going to be predominant, or black, or whatever primer color you're using, and they're just going to look kind of cakey. I don't know if that's a good description. They're going to look like the paint was just kind of like haphazardly put on there, and they're not going to look as good. So let's start going with some of these. So this will be Wolf Alpha Galaxy, which is a forest green with tan highlights. Let me shake up this paint here. Augustine, you got any tips or advice on miniature or infantry and elementals and so on?
I use try to don't overreach since it's so big, so small. You don't need to have a huge level of detail.
Yeah.
That size to brain adds the extra detail. So don't worry about miniatures.
Right. Let me clean the oils off my brushes real quick while I'm thinking about it, because I'll forget and then I'll ruin them. Alright, I can close this up. Alright, so I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to go over here and I think I'm going to use this. This is a Games and Gears Pro Studio. They're actually double-ended, so you get two brushes for one. They're a little long, but I bought these, I think, on a Kickstarter. Not my favorite brush, but they're a natural sable, and I don't feel bad about abusing them. So I didn't say abusing them. I'm not really abusing them, but I don't feel like I have to worry about them being such an expensive brush. So far, they've held up, but they're not the most capable at holding a point. So for detail, fine detail, I don't use them so much. But what I do like is I have this big fat one, relatively speaking. This is like a number 4XR or whatever. I use this for washing because it holds a lot of wash in the bristles. So there are some good things about it. Mainly the thing I got is it came with a really cool, almost like a samurai sword paintbrush display rack. And that's really all I wanted. So I got the brushes too to try them out. A little loose here. So now I'm just gonna go. I'm on black primer. I probably, if I were doing this now, because these were primed long before I had an airbrush, I would probably use the airbrush and do just a quick pop of a gray to bring out some zenithal highlights. So right now, All I'm thinking about is I want a base of green, and I just want to hit at least from the top side areas that you're going to see first, almost like you're thinking about, like you're painting almost zenithal. That doesn't mean I'm not going to paint everything, but if it's on the underside of the model, I mean, unless you have people going and turning it upside down to look at it, it doesn't exist. It's not there. It's not a thing that you have to worry about painting. You can, but why not leave that as a shadow and have it enhance your painting? And you can do that with larger models too. I mean, if the underside of the arm isn't ever going to be seen, as long as it's dark, it's not going to look weird. Now, if you're doing something specific like a pattern or something like that, then yeah, you might need to kind of work on that. But I'm going to leave the gun and the fist here because those will be metallic, because I'll just stick with my usual, which is I tend to paint the metallic stuff metallic and let it be. But you can see this. Oh, actually, let me paint the brush here. You can see it kind of starts to fray out a little bit, and I've tried with multiple times to do anything about it. It doesn't work. So like I said, it's great for base coating, small base coating and stuff like that, but I don't recommend Games and Gear brushes, at least not these Pro Studio ones. They might have improved. These are, I think I had these about 4 or 5 years, or actually longer than that, but they're not my favorite brush. It's just not something I recommend. I think they have plenty of new stuff that they've come out with, and based on feedback and all that, I'm willing to give them another shot, but I already have just tons of other brushes. I'd really have to wear out a lot of stuff before I felt it was needed. All right. So on the, let me get in between the missile launchers here. Check chat. Any unseen, finished, or whip? I can go over some stuff here in a little bit. So it doesn't look like I made much on here, but I've got a green base coat over black, which is fine. And you could do this again with smaller infantry as well. It just won't take as long because the surface area isn't as big. But I'm gonna let that dry for a little bit, and what I would do then is pull up a lighter color. To start working the like I said, forest green. So right now it's like a very, very dark, I don't know what kind of green you would call this, almost like a dark moss green. The color I'm using is actually called peacock green, and I've used this before on bases and stuff. I don't think I've actually painted them. I don't think I've used it as a layer or a base coat on any of my current stuff. So anyway, it's not going to get too much brighter because it's already a dark green and now it's going over black. So now I've hit a lot of those colors, and I'm going to keep working with the green until I'm done with the green, and then we'll hit the tan because those are highlights. Do you typically use a single battle arm to represent a point in a squad? Yeah, I don't want to paint 5 or 7 or however many and put them all on one base. First off, I don't put my infantry on hex bases. I did it a couple times way back when I was not really aware of the hassle with it. So I found that just putting them on pennies or nickels or whatever is more of my preference. And it kind of goes along too with the size of these guys. Like, you want to put 4 of these guys on a hex base. They're big. They're out of scale. The battle armor, most of them are out of scale. So it's a representation as far as I'm concerned at that point. And since it's representing something, I only need 1 of them. So I paint, 6 of them, and I've got, I guess I could use them thematically or as a photograph. Hey, look, there's a full unit of 6 Word of Blake, whatever. But when it comes to game and table use, it's like, hey, cool, now I have 6 squads of battle armor. Yeah, Cubby AC, it's been the problem with most of these brushes is they just don't hold it very well. I mean, I'm wondering if these are more of a watercolor geared style of bristle and all of that, which is fine, but these are absolutely marketed as miniature painting, and they're just not ideal. Like I said, they're not awful. They're not awful, but they're not ideal. And I think if you're doing detail painting, you could go buy a better detail brush. In fact, while I'm talking about brushes, and I'll get to some of this other stuff here in a minute, It used to be called Slow Fuse Gaming. Now it's Monument Hobbies. That's why it says Slow Fuse on here. But he's a streamer. He used to paint for GW. He's a really nice guy. They have great customer service, and his brushes are awesome. They are not expensive compared to Winsor & Newton or whatever. I use his. They're not called long wicks anymore, but he has 3 lines on his website. There's the synthetic. There's the sable, and then there's like a dry brush line. There's synthetics too, but it's like they're specifically for that. So, but his brushes are great. They are affordable, and I use this detail brush for tons of stuff. Now it will lose bristles over time, just like any fine brush will. But I've been detailing with this brush for like 2 years, and it still works. It's getting to the point where I need to replace it, but I also use his one of his synthetic ones. This is a det cord. These are what I think they're still called now, det cords. Sam Calderon, thanks for the follow. It's a little bit longer, like liner style, and the tip is synthetic, so it's going to be bent a little bit. But if you do really well with kind of rotating your brush or whatnot, or you can just learn to accept it. Again, these are affordable. They're less than like $8 a brush, I think, like $7 or $8, depending. You can buy like a pack or a mix and match thing. I haven't been on his website in a while. I remember there was like a 4 or 5 brush deal. I don't get kickbacks from him. I'm not saying this because I want, whatever. I'm just telling you all what I use because I like it. And then I will wholeheartedly recommend Gentastic's Drunken Brush Scoop. This is the best brush soap I've ever used. And it conditions brushes. You can leave it on the brush to have them keep a point when you're not using them. You go and reactivate it with water, wash it off, and the brush is great. It cleans out paint you didn't know you had in your brushes. It's awesome. You get 2 ounces. I've been using this, like I said, for 3 or 4 years, and it's got plenty left in it. You don't need a whole lot. I've got a whole video on how to care for your brushes and stuff, and I talk about this as well. So yeah, if you're looking to buy new brushes and you go over to Monument Hobbies there, I recommend you at least try the smaller can of their brush soap. Yeah, if you don't like it, let me know why, because I haven't found anyone that doesn't like it yet. All right. So this green on here, or what was I going for here with the the width and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, I'll get some of that. I'd have to get up away from my desk. Some of it's in the cabinet, but so I want to pick another green to complement this, and so we're going for a forest green. So I think I want to say this bright green, thin down, is German Camo bright green. Man, I use this on a lot of things. I should try something different. What else do we have? Uniform green. Well, let's see. Let's let you guys see what you guys think. I don't want to use an olive. Flat green. All right, it'll be between these 3. I know they all look the same on the camera. That's funny. Might as well just spin one up and use it. Yeah, German Camo green and uniform green are basically the same. And the flat green is a little darker. I'm going to go with the flat green. Still with us there, Augustin?
Yeah.
All right.
I prefer uniform green, but those greens from Vallejo are a bit
thick.
The pigment is not very good. You have to move the bottle a lot in order to have a good mixture of pigment and solvent.
Yeah.
Tricky.
If you look at the bottom of my bottle, I have a black Sharpie marker dot on there, and that tells me that I've put an agitator or 2 in the bottle, because I put agitators in everything now, because I don't like getting half mixed paint from the bottle. Iron Sphinx, thanks for the follow. Welcome. Or if you just got here. So I've done this green paint down. Get some. There we go. Get it workable here. And now I'm just doing the same thing. I'm hitting all those raised areas, but I'm not trying to get it in the cracks. And I don't need to work like as careful or as deliberate as you might think. I'm just letting the brush catch the raised areas. And you need to have a little bit of deliberate application, but I'm not trying to force it into the cracks. I'm not trying to make it in every little spot or paint every panel much more accurately like I would on a larger miniature, because you just can't. And if you're painting these, chances are you're painting a bunch of them. So I'm overbrushing. I'm just letting the tip of the bristles catch the edges. Then on this underside here, I'm just flicking the brush upward. I'm almost doing a blended highlight, but I'm just letting the paint do what it's going to do. I'm not really focused on it because it's not worth it. I said no one's gonna pick up your battle armor and go, man, that's the best painted battle armor ever. It's not a model that's going to show off your talents. But if it looks like you painted it really quickly and you have a few things of the gotchas and stuff, then it's going to look like you don't really paint them very well. That makes sense. So I poured out way too much paint for essentially not a whole lot, but if I ordinarily I'd be painting, a bunch of these. Shoulder pads for sure, the top of the helmet for sure, the top of the missile launcher I'm going to get a nice little quick second coat. But really there's not a lot of movement. You should never force it into the cracks. That's right, unless you're specifically trying to change the color of the cracks. I'm sure there's an audio clip of that'll come back to haunt me later. Don't you dare, Augustin.
Oops. Too late.
Let's try to catch a little bit of this edge. So now we got the chest plate, the helmet, stuff that, like I said, you just want to go back, look at it again, and say, oh yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of paint just to have a nice bright, spot or two on those upper edges that everybody's going to see. Top of the shoulder pad, maybe a little bit on the knee and the top of the foot. Just check to see if, yep, it's not overly unsmooth, but there's just a little bit of Alright, so there's the green. We'll let it dry for a minute. Yeah, that's the best soap. Alright, so the whip that was asking about, let me scroll through chat here. Any unseen, finished, or whip? Okay. Let's go. Oh, I pulled something out of a box a while back. Let me go grab it real quick. So I started painting this guy forever ago. I'm pretty sure. Yep, here we go. So on my bases, I used to engrave or scratch my initials in the year. That's 2007, folks. And it's still not done. It's been between moves and all that, I have not done anything with this beyond the detail. And I just wanted to make it, look cool, do some red starburst looking patterns, but it hasn't gotten beyond that. I need to highlight, shade, do a bunch of things to it. I just haven't done it. I might do it with oils now. Maybe it's what it was meant to have. So I made the base out of baking clay or whatever it was. So anyway, it's dusty. That's how long it's been around without getting any attention. And then the one I've done more recently that ended up on my shelf and not getting done is the Solaris 7 Scorpion. I did a custom mech sheet with spikes. It's got an LB-20, some micro pulse, and a turret. It's got a laser anti-missile system. It's got a supercharger. It's got all kinds of stuff. This was the base for, I think it was Tandric Stables. It's going to be like red. I think it's red and yellow, or I don't know. But this was the base. I haven't done anything beyond the base colors. And also the legs. It didn't have any legs, so I press molded these legs. It was while I was first learning how to do that. That's why they look pretty rough around the, I guess you could call the ankle. A lot of this is basically green stuff. So the body is normal, but these are styrene plates going around the armor plates going around the legs. What else did I do? I made the spikes out of green stuff. Most of them turned out okay. A couple I'm not super happy with, but whatever. And that's the what is the little doodad that goes on the legs of the old Clan Omnimex, but now it's 3 micro lasers. So anyway, and then one I've actually been working on recently is I'm going to do a lance of them, which I stopped working on this, but this is a custom Thunderbolt, custom within the cannon. It's the 8 medium laser, 1 large laser version. I think it's the, what's his name? Starts with a T. I don't know. Anyway, it's on Sarna. If you look up the Thunderbolts, there's a one that starts with a T. I think it's a Tancred. No, not Tancred. Tallman. Yeah, thank you, Sam Calderon. Appreciate it. Yeah, Tallman. This is the Tallman variant. So because I put it on an out of print one, the 4 medium lasers, it's supposed to have 8. It says right torso and left torso. I just didn't have the room to put 4 of them down here. I thought it would look odd, having them kind of look like a 4 down here or whatever. So I built basically a, similar in the similar vein of the missile launcher that would have been over here, but it says it's in the right torso. I wish it would have been, that would have been cool. They were all over here, but yeah, the Tallman. It's the Tallman variant, and you can see I've done some airbrush highlights with the red, and then next up, this guy will get oil highlights. So, but I've got 3 other mechs that I want to match the scheme for. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll start something, I like where it's going, and then I'll decide to paint more than just one of them. So, yeah, there's some whip for you, I guess, if that scratches that itch for y'all. Oh wow, look at that, Mike with the cut and paste from Sarna. Sarna's so awesome. Sarna is the best and worst thing to me, because it makes me just like super happy that I can just scroll through things and read about all kinds of stuff that it would be harder to find in individual books. And then at the same time, I don't like it because then I decide I want to do something because of those books or because of those information. So I'll find a mech variant I didn't know about and make it, and then totally get sidetracked off everything else I was working on. If I offended you, it was on purpose. Yeah, I don't know if it'd even be fair to call that work in progress Marauder there, during one. You'd have to make progress for it to be a work in progress, and I'm pretty sure 13 years is not progress. I don't know what you'd call it. I'd call it just I need to finish it. I do. Mainly because I want to sell it. I'm not a huge fan of the Battle Droids Marauder sculpt in its entirety, but I was painting that with the intent of selling it, and then, like many good intentions, things get lost in the mix. But I won't do anything with it until it's finished. So, all right. So now we've got our green. Our green's dry. I feel like we could agree that that is a foresty looking green, not in the finished sense, but in that when we put a brown wash over this and the tan, it's going to mute down a little bit and look good and a whole lot less like a Jade Falcon. So the Alpha Galaxy uses tan highlights or tan accents. I think we'll use a khaki color. Yeah, I'm gonna use a game color khaki. What do you think, Augustin? Am I messing this up?
No, it's okay.
It's okay, just okay.
Yeah. Which kind of color will you use for your edge highlight? You will mix green with white or green with yellow?
For honestly, for the highlight, I won't use yellow because as soon as you put yellow in that green, it's going to start looking more like a lot of the Jade Falcon colors. But and I want to avoid that because I want people to be like, oh, that's Wolf, not Jade Falcon. So I'm going to grab that Monument detail brush here for this khaki. A little water to it. I think I will grab a. Hold on here. I've got a brighter green. Like I might actually use this green, Scorpion green, depending on how dark it is when we wash is finished. So tan highlights. So let's do these little leg plates here. So again, I'm not focusing on the insanely small detail on this. I just want to get the paint where it needs to be. And I know that seems kind of obvious when you say it out loud, but if you get hung up on just trying to detail every little thing, these things are going to take forever. But at the same time, if you just quickly pay it no mind, then it'll look like it was missed, and you're going to miss out on the opportunity to have your battle armor or your infantry look a lot better. I should have prepared some infantry for this. I was going to do a tutorial on infantry at some point. It's looking like maybe I need to jump a little further into doing that. So the green's going to show through a little bit on the tan. It's going to take 2 thin coats, to quote everybody's favorite former GW artist. But I'm just looking to accent things. I want the overall color to be green. So, and if you're doing a lot of these, you don't need to accent or highlight a whole bunch of different colors. So if you just want to do a little for the arm and the upper leg pads, cool. If you want to do the chest plate, which I think I will just for demonstration purposes here, take your brush. I'm going to go perpendicular, and now I'm just going to catch the upper edges. The vented armor ripple thing or whatever, that's going to look cool regardless of what we do, because the wash is going to take care of that for us. So I'm just really trying not to put paint anywhere else. And again, just taking the high side. Of the model there. Thanks for the follow, Vermin Thrax Rex. I saw I was seeing double there for a second. Let me change the focal plane here. There we go. Can I show the Scorpion again for a friend? Sure, yeah. We'll let this dry real quick anyway before we do the wash. This is a Solaris 7 custom loadout Scorpion with spikes and turret and laser anti-missile system and an LB-20 and a supercharge. I think it has mask too. It's fast. It's not slow. The idea is to start in the duel, run up to the bad guy, plug him with the AC-20 or the LB-20 with a slug, and then pepper him with the cluster shots. And you got the turret to keep small arms or a small brace of weapons at least shooting if he gets out of your main firing arc, because it's a quad, so you don't get the torso twist option. So I thought about it. You know, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think it would be fun. I haven't played with it yet, but I want to. I'm going to do some quick gunmetal on the flamer barrel and the hand, or the claw. Maybe the jump jet ports. Put a little bit in these vents for this SRM launchers. And I'm just going to leave the jump jets alone. All right, so there's our elemental. Now we're going to get we're going to use strong tone. It's brown, but it's darker, so it'll mute down that green a little bit. It's going to brown up that tan, and I know I said we'd try to do a second coat, but I don't think the green's showing through enough. Well, now that I say that, I was trying to get this done, having you guys watch paint dries and all that fun, but this spot here did turn out to have a little more green, so I'll just hit them real quick again just to reinforce those upper areas. You may walk funny as a turret leg. Yeah, that's the laser anti-missile system. I mounted it in the left rear leg. Now all I want to do is show quads just to put Daring One to sleep. I got another Scorpion and I got a Goliath. Those are the recent ones I just finished for the Canopian force I'm building. So Augustin, you probably don't play Davians very often, right?
No. Actually, in Spain, Curita is the most popular faction, and I am, the prey.
So you always have to be Davian then, if they're all Kurita.
Yeah, somebody has to keep them being honest. Or becoming a target. I'm not sure about this.
Why do I hate you so much? Show the quads. There's no hate. There's no hate. You know what? That's the great thing about Battletech is the fact that you can like something and not like something else, and it really doesn't matter. Like, you can be the I love Kurita guy. You can be the I love Kurita quads guy if you want. Be real popular with all your friends. But I mean, it's like I have one of the guys I play regularly is a Capellan fan. I was like, how did that happen? You just gotta wonder. No, but no, he's a good guy. He's fun to play against. We have a great time. Sometimes he wins, but sometimes I just hand it to him and it says how it's gonna be. I like to use natural brushes for washes. I'm gonna grab again, this is another Games and Gears one, so I'll use it for anything. Got a little bit of green paint from my wash cup here. I'm gonna get that taken care of. And this is Army Painter Strong Tone. I'm gonna add a little water to it. And this is all dry now, so let's just hit it real quick. Now I do want to cover the model. I want to get every little recess and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll take away. Wash is about taking away when you do a coverage wash. When you do a targeted, pin wash, if you will, or whatever, then you're very specific with that. But when you just want to change the color and the overall tone of a miniature, the overall, then you need to get it overall, everything. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words there. So I've got it covered. I've got a paper towel. Now I want to avoid tide marks. So I've put my brush back in the water, got some water on it. I'm going to wick away some of that, put a little bit on my palette. And now I don't want these stains on the top, so I'm going to just wash it away. Same thing on the top of the helmet. You can pull it one direction or the other, whatever works for you. But now I'm looking for all those high areas where the light would be hitting the most. I'm leaving the tan alone because I actually want it to get a little bit of wash in the recesses. But anywhere where there's a high raised area of the green, I've just got a little bit of water on my brush, and I'm wiping away where it would have built up. And then everything else is just going to settle a little bit in that miss. And sometimes the wash with surface tension and everything won't go into some of the holes, like lasers or LRM tubes and stuff like that, and you kind of got to dot it in there, which is what I'm doing with this one right here. But in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that important. That's not the point of this demonstration. But so now that tan is probably a little brighter than I want it to be. So what I'll probably do once the wash is dry, which now I'm not going to make you sit there and watch the wash get completely dry, is I would come back and just put another quick drop of wash over the tan. While the green, I think, is going to look nice. It's got a little bit of visual variation from the black to dark green to lighter green. We've taken some of that back down with the wash, which is also going to help merge some of those transitions between the two. And then, like I said, this khaki, since it's such a small area on the model, I can play around with that. It's 5 points on the model. I don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it. If I was painting 5 or 25 of these things, by the time I got to the 25th one, the wash on this thing would be dry. I'd just go back and do it again. So it really is efficient when you have a bit of a plan and a pattern. Let's see. How often do I roll dice? I try to play at least once a month now. I went a long time without playing. I used to live in Germany for a couple of years, and then I was in a couple of areas that there just wasn't a lot of gaming going on. So I got away from that. But now that I've lived here for the last 5 years south of Atlanta, and I immediately found a place to go and start playing. Met up with actually a couple of my older friends that I didn't even know lived down in this area. So now we have a pretty good sized gaming group. We play Battletech. They play Battletech. The group does at least once or twice a month. They play Alpha Strike, which I played a couple of games. I just played Battletech about a week and a half ago. Had a blast. It was a lot of fun. So, and that's just for that game. I also like to play a few others. So 40K, but since everything's kind of new with that, and I only got in 8th edition. I like the Death Guard models. I really got into it more because I thought the models were cool. But my enthusiasm for that has just kind of been on hold simply because everything's changing, and I just kind of I go back and forth between painting a fantasy model or a future sci-fi model or mechs or whatever, or I have some Kings of War skirmish games that I've been painting that I like. If I go back and forth, I don't get burnt out and I paint more, which also explains why I have things that get painted part way and then they don't get painted at all. So there is a downside to it, but if I get burned out on painting, I've had it happen. I didn't paint anything for a couple of years. I just didn't want to. So Augustine, I don't know what your feelings are on that, but I just know that if the hobby is not fun for you, or it makes you feel like it's work and labor, you're not gonna do it.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. If you don't enjoy painting, stop right now. It's the best way to get burnout.
Right. It happens to writers. It happens to artists of all kinds of abilities and varying areas of work. So with writers a little more because it can be your livelihood. You're trying to force the creativity. But with painting, if sitting down and painting a model isn't going to leave you happier when you're done, as in you feel like you accomplished something, or you're happy with what you learned, or you're watching other people paint while you learn to paint, if those things aren't enjoyable for you because you've done so much of it, take a little bit of a step back. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you keep going because you feel like you have to, or you've got something you got to do, you might be on your way to just not wanting to do anything with it at all. I've had people talk about, oh yeah, I just got frustrated with the game and this and that. And everybody has their own reasons or whatever, and I'm not judging either way. But I've recently started getting rid of some stuff because I looked in my gaming collection. I was like, there's no way I'm going to paint all this. I don't use some of this at all. And it was kind of not stressing me out, but it was kind of hanging over my head like a burden of like, I don't want to be like, oh, I have to paint all this stuff. So anyway. So it looks like the chest plate here is mostly dry. I'm probably throwing this wash on prematurely, but I don't care. Again, battle armor, infantry, something. It's not that detailed. or big to detail. Someone will probably ask, I know, how are you going to do the visor on the Elemental? Well, you don't have to, because it's not 25 millimeter or 28 millimeter. It's not that big. So by all means, if you want to take a little lick of red paint or blue paint or whatever and put it in the visor, the time that I would have done that would have been after the dark green, but before the lighter green. Simply because now I only have one color on the model above black. So the reset button, if it's real bad, is black and then that one color, or if it's not too bad, that one color, so that green. But once you start putting a second layer, a third layer, and a wash, and so on and so forth, if you get a little bit of a mistake here or there, then and you want to touch it up, it's a lot more work to fix it. And again, at this scale, like, you know, it's already, as the wash is drying, I'm starting to see the kneecaps are brighter because we took the wash off of them. The tops of the launchers have a little bit of a highlight here because we've pulled the paint to the lighter color, and then the outer edges have a little bit of a transition. The areas where I was like, oh yeah, I just want a little bit of almost an anti-highlight here, those have smoothed out. So I'm real happy with this, and I mean, again, talking through it, I could have painted 5-10 of these in the time that we've been talking about it, instead of just, you know, explaining things, and that's fine. I mean, I'm enjoying this. It's fun. I don't get to teach as often as I'd like. So, because sniffing paint is a terrible addiction. Mine is a lack of patience and drinking too much, so my hand-eye coordination degrades my ability. Well, I mean, I guess if you start painting the details and then move on to the bigger stuff later, if you have a plan, then I guess you can still do that there. Oh yeah, a dedicated area for sure. Really the biggest thing is light, because I'll paint in hotels when I'm on work trips. And when I first started it, I noticed I was trying to use the desk lamp at a hotel room. I couldn't see what I was doing as well. I mean, a bright light spoils you when it comes to painting miniatures for sure. I mean, if I was painting larger stuff, maybe it would be all right. But so I bought a little travel light and I use that, and I've noticed it helps me. And I still try to not do detail work while I'm in a hotel or on a work trip, because I have a smaller hobby kit and I still bring good brushes and things like that. But the light just it's such a shorter stand, and it just doesn't take it doesn't show up as much on the miniature as well as I'd like it to. So small kids, the natural enemy of minis. Yep. I've got one that's 17 months old, so in the future he already bangs on the glass case with the miniatures in it, which I'm like, oh, this is not going to go well. So, well, just to mess with, Brushido's there. Be proud of your pile of shame, Ryan. Yeah. Well, I don't think I could fit it all in one shot. People say, oh yeah, I've got a shelf of shame over here. I have multiple shelves, and then I have other stuff in boxes. It's, like I said, that Marauder that I pulled out was in a box. It wasn't even on the shelf of shame. It was in the box of shame, next to the other box of shame. Cubby-Yak is now following. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. How long have we been streaming for here? I've lost track. Contents in my travel kit. The One Dragon, if you go to my Instagram, Hotel Hobbyist, one of the very early pictures will show what I have. I'll still talk about it. In fact, actually, I think I have it right here. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera very well. Move this palette out of the way. It's kind of been deconstructed. So essentially, what on Instagram on Hotel Hobbyist, you'll see I've got a small like shipping box, and I will travel. I'll usually put 4 or 5 miniatures in bubble wrap. So I know that you're really interested in seeing that. I've also got some like foam pads that fit, and then I have some paper towels, because there's not always paper towels in the kit. And then this is, and you can't see it, it's white palette paper, but it's the same palette paper that you saw me using. I just use gray on camera so it doesn't reflect like this and wash out. And then in the box I have a sample size of the Gentastic brush soap, and then I'll put a variety of brushes, usually the basic application brushes and stuff like that. I have a short, it's actually meant for travel, I guess. This is a Games and Gears brush, but again, if I'm using it and it for some reason craps out on me, I'm not, having a bad time with a good brush. And then depending on what I'm doing, I will put anywhere from 4 or 5 paints. Let me show the box here. It's not very big. This is probably, I think it's a 6 by 9 inch box. The rubber bands are to hold it closed while it's in my suitcase. But I can fit about 5 or 6 dropper bottle style paints in there, and then the miniatures I will put in between here, and then I'll put the foam pad over the top of it, and then close it down and put the rubber bands around it. That's generally what I have. Not always, because other times I'll do miniature prep in a hotel room because I don't like spending my time in front of my desk with my good lighting and all my paints and all my tools, scraping mold lines and trimming and filing, even assembling and stuff like that. So I'll bring brass brushes and like a scraping tool and stuff like that to help me basically not spend my time at home when I'm around my family doing kind of the mindless stuff. So if I'm here, I want to paint because I've got all the things that I want to paint with. Oh, the miniatures. Mine's called Amanda. Yeah, my son's name is Jackson. 1.5 hours? Oh yeah, sure enough. There it is. My phone stream manager showed me. Yep, 1 hour and 1.5 hours. All right. I want to finish this elemental. So I feel like that khaki muted down to tan pretty good with the wash over the top of it. The metallics got a little bit of a wash over them from the brown. And I guess now we just need to pick out, I'm going to pick out a couple of highlights. You don't have to. So since the question was asked about from Augustine on what I was going to highlight with, let's see. That's bright yellow green. I don't want that. Ooh. That might be too bright. I don't want a bright green in the sense of the, oh, let's give it a shot. Let's see what it does. This is a Reaper paint, so I got to shake it up real well because they Reaper paints, if you own them, there's nothing wrong with them. But if you don't shake them up, they're useless. Oh, and it looks like I don't have an agitator in here either. So we'll see. If I don't like the way this paint starts out on the palette, I'll switch colors. Elements to the elemental is elementary. All right. Yeah. So the reason I chose this green is it's more of an olive. I wanted to stay away from a yellow tint. Again, because I don't want the first thing people say when they see this is it a Jade Falcon. Now, I'm not the one that designed Alpha Galaxy, Wolf Alpha Galaxy, as basically green and tan, which was a Jade Falcon Iota Galaxy is green and bone highlights. So they look very similar, which I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but it is what it is. But anyway, those tend to have more of a bright pop green to the Jade Falcon stuff. So, because they're usually jade green type bases, this is supposed to be like a forest green. So I don't really want it to be super bright. Yeah, this will work. So I've got it pretty thin on my palette. And I'm just going to go and hit some of those areas where I let that paint work its way brighter. Holding perpendicular. I could even use that finer brush. But I'm really not picking out a ton of stuff. I'm just going to the highest points here. And just grabbing a couple spots where the light would catch the most. It's really all it needs. You don't have to edge highlight the whole model. You can do a few pops here and there of color, and it'll achieve the same effect. And again, the human eye can only see so fine a detail at a distance, and even up close, without the proper lighting, you can miss a lot. So, unless you're really doing this more for your own either practice or because it's, again, I'm not telling you how you paint it is wrong, but you might be, excuse the term, spinning your tires or spinning your wheels just trying to get a bunch of detail on something that really isn't going to need it. So this edge here, I mean, I'm just hitting this last corners a little bit just to reinforce just the most highest points. And so you can change colors on it. I wouldn't recommend white if you wanted to move a little bit of gray into it. But again, I'm not trying to hit every single thing on this model. And essentially, I'm already happy with the way it looks. I'm just doing more on here just to demonstrate it. But you don't have to be super detail oriented on this. If you hold your brush perpendicular, the edges stick out on a lot of different models. If you mess up or whatever, dip your brush in water. If you keep your brush or your paints thin, you can go in and touch it up. Pull the paint around a little bit. But there we go. Dun-dun-dun. All right, yeah, daring one with the Jade Falcon jokes. Where's the moderator to kick him out? Kids are screaming. All right, hey, thanks Cubby AC for showing up. Appreciate it. But yeah, what do you think, Augustin? I'm calling it done.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd be more than happy with putting this on the table if we were doing something a little bit more, specific for either a display or something like that. I would probably do a little bit finer highlights. Obviously, I didn't paint the missile tips or the visor, but again, I just throw a color on there, either some like a yellow or something to contrast something, maybe a yellow or a red for the missiles. White you can do, but you need to put like a brown underneath it or a blue to have a cooler or warm white. But it's such a small dot. I think that's probably a little more frustrating. You get a lot more coverage with a red or even a yellow, honestly. Debating on if I should edge highlight camo pattern on my Gray Death Legion unit. Well, it's up to you. The trouble you'll run into is that it's more than likely with Gray Death Legion is you painted them gray, which there's nothing wrong with that because that's what you're supposed to do. But when you get into highlighting that, your options for highlighting are limited because grayscale is a lot of highlight options. So even when I paint red, I will highlight sometimes and often with gray. In fact, this guy here, a lot of the edge highlights were done with a grayscale, not with white, but on the brown I put gray. Because I'm not talking about the gray barrels and all that, but the actual brown armor panels, a lot of these edge highlights are a light gray. So what the pitfall of having a gray model with more gray on it is that they can get lost. So depending on how bright your gray color is, it may not really pay off for you on a camo scheme. If that makes sense, Verminthrax Rex. I don't know your experience level of painting and all of that, but I should have asked that before I started yakking at you. You usually just use one battle armor to represent the squad point. Yeah, I usually just use one. This was just, hey, let's paint some battle armor and see how it goes. Anybody that joined in later, I also did some oil highlighting on the red and gray on his left arm and somewhat on his left torso. You can see the difference between the unhighlighted side versus the highlighted side. And so here's a case with Verminthrax is that I've got predominantly gray, and then I've highlighted the gray. So now I'm gonna have to get closer and closer to white if I'm gonna do any edge highlights on this. So, and I might do that, probably not all of the edges, but maybe just where there's some brightness. So my suggestion to you would be not necessarily edge highlight everything, but maybe pick out the darker portions of if the Gray Death Legion. I think you have like a light gray, dark gray camo pattern. Then perhaps just edge highlight the areas with the darker gray that run across that, and that might actually sell it more than having to do the whole model. Yeah, I feel like clan invasion coming up and all of that. I thought focusing on clan mix would be, or at least clan miniatures would be a good idea. It's not a end all be all. I paint whatever, but taking a black primered elemental to a basically ready to be based and clear coated clan wolf. elemental alpha galaxy is kind of satisfying. So have a good one, CJ. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. All right. Oh, I was supposed to. That's right. I got to show off the quads because we gotta make Daring One upset and yawn more. One sec. Oh, cool, Verminthrax. Yeah, if you've never tried it before, I mean, if you're happy, like, here's what I tell people is, you know, take risks, be bold, enjoy learning to do different things. But I don't know what model or models you've painted with your Grey Death Legion. If it's just one and you're just trying it out, great. But if you're like really happy with it and you're real proud of what you've done so far and you like it and you're worried about ruining it, don't try this on that model. Try it on a different model. Try it on, you know, prime another miniature or you know, like I demonstrated here is I've got this Griffin. Now I'm not planning on leaving him as a tester, but I just happened to grab him the other day because he's just got black primer on him and I used him for the barrel glow on one of my videos. So I was like, yeah, I'll just do some work on him as a demonstration. But you know, if he had some camo on here, you know, in fact, since I've got this gray, I don't know what your gray looks like. I'll show you what the edge highlight will look like on this upper panel there where there's not as much gray. I'll get to that here in a sec. But you know, if you can kind of get an idea of what it might look like. But if edge highlighting is new to you and you're worried about maybe ruining a model that you enjoy how it's already turned out, then don't try that. Try it on something that I always recommend this, try it out on something that you don't necessarily care about. Or, I mean, even I tell people to practice on the hex base because you've got a couple edges if you've got it on a hex base. You've got flat surfaces to try painting, you know, if you're trying to do fine details or stripes. I'm like, practice on the hex base. When I started, a lot of these miniatures, if you were to be able to strip it off and see what was underneath, have test things on the edges of them because that's what I'll use sometimes just to see how it looks. So why do you hate Sexy Darling One so much? All right, so so I've been on a Magistracy of Canopus kick. So this is the first Goliath I've ever painted, and it was also kind of a demonstration of the easy dry brush scheme that I wanted to teach how to do on the videos. So this was kind of one of those, let me see if I can get it to turn out well enough to actually teach it. And also this was another rescue Scorpion. The legs were broken below the ankles. Most of it is green stuff. The lower parts of the whatever piston looking thing, it's a little spots here there are uneven. And then he was missing the missile launcher, so I used a new SRM6 from one of the Warhammers to fix that. And I think the barrel is brass with a sleeve around it, so zap. But yeah, and then the smoke launcher on this one on this side I made using a piece of plastic and drilled some holes and put some jewelry wire through it to make it look like this one. It's actually more detailed than the original one. As you can actually see the smoke tube separate on this one. Anyway. The one that I want to do is a video on magnetizing. Not necessarily to this level, but this is my Hunchback 4P. Mr. Laser Beams. But if I don't want him to be a 4P, now he's back to being just old Mr. AC20. But if I want him to be Mr. AC10 with 2 medium lasers, which I think is the G, now he's that too. So, 3 for 1 with a Hunchback. There's a magnet recessed back at the very back of the barrel that I drilled out opening more, and then behind each of these is a little magnet here just to keep it in place. They're pretty good with friction, but it definitely guarantees that it's not going to fall out. So, it's not going anywhere. All right, let's take a look at these gray edge highlights here. I remember the old webpage from, I think, one of the early CSO artists using the name MOC scheme, but on a recent Warhammer 2C. Was it finished, Sam Calderon? Was it a finished model, or was it in the middle of being worked on? You would lose those small parts. Yeah, well, fortunately, because the magnet is strong enough in the back there, the other one sticks on top. And I had thought about putting a magnet in the base to kind of leave it there, but I need to build a metal strip for all my magnetized parts. I don't like to magnetize Battletech miniatures. I just did that more on a proof of concept type of thing. But I did just recently magnetize a Intersphere Omnimech, and I did it on a whim, and I'm happy with it, but I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of stuff to keep track of, because it's 3 different Omnimech variations, and already just for the top turrets on the top torso weapons on them, it's a mention. I've got 3 little things that all want to stick together. There's the regular turret, there's the turret I made, and then there's I think it's from a Viking or something like that, but anyway. The point is it's just a lot to have sitting in a box or on a shelf. Guided a step-by-step yellow Canopian scheme, but you lost the webpage eons ago. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know who that is, or what was it? Might have been maybe Archer. He was one of the original Camo Specs guys. So, to get back to Verminthrax there, so these were oil highlights done a few days ago. They're dry. This is the one that kind of turned out the best, but up here I would definitely reinforce that if I were doing more oils, but since it's kind of like, I guess, similar maybe to what a gray would look like just on a panel, I'm gonna highlight that one and maybe this one right below it to show kind of what the white would look like, or a very light gray. So my favorite highlight colors that I like to use on most schemes for edge highlighting is Stonewall Gray and Wolf Gray. And there's what these two look like. So Stonewall Gray is definitely a light gray. Wolf Gray has a slight blue tinge to it. So depending on the color palette that I'm using and what I'm highlighting, I'll switch between the two, because my Chaos Space Marines, I use a blue-black color, and the Wolf Gray goes much better with blue for the highlighting than the Stonewall. They both would work, but I'm just telling you these are my 2 favorites. So, but you don't have to. I mean, any light gray that you have access to or that you already have and like is fine. It's just the Stonewall is very, very light, and also came out of the bottle way too fast. But whatever. We will not use all that paint. We won't use hardly any of it. As you can see, I'm dragging the paint out because I want to get it to a thinned consistency. And edge highlighting isn't always about a nice solid line of paint. Sometimes it's about just an accent in one direction. So this point is where I want it to be the brightest. So I'm going to pull the paint this way, and then eventually with a layer or two this will become brighter than the whole edge will. And it's going to be subtle but noticeable. Just reinforce it a little bit. See, I haven't even reloaded my brush. And it's gonna, as it dries, because it was thin, it'll mute a little bit, which gives you the option to come back in. And now if you wanted to do white for your highlights, if you wanted to do white, you could grab some white, maybe put just a little bit of the gray into it, or vice versa, put a little bit of white into the gray, and then just focus on just this little spot right here and reinforce that, and then maybe this corner where the point of light would be the brightest. So I'm not even going to do this whole panel. I'm just going to do this edge and this edge. I'm not going to do the bottom or the front. I'm not going to edge highlight the whole thing. I'm just going to do a portion of it. Catch you later, Daring One. Fun messing with you. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, you're right. Archer. Yeah, Sam Calderon. That's great. That's a good point. So yeah, so I don't know if Vermithrax, if you're still, so if doing both techniques, would you edge highlight before or after the pin wash? After. But you can do either. I know that's, so if you're good at pin washing and your flow and everything stays in the cracks and all that, fine. If it bleeds over to the edges though, and it's going to ruin your edge highlight, then it's you got to do the opposite. So I feel it's easier for me to darken everything the way I want it to be, and then highlight something, because this paint, if you keep it thin, I can put let me thin it out a little more. I can put a paint stroke on here, have it on the edge of this white or this highlight here, and then if I don't like it, I can wipe it off. Or if it's on there a little bit and I realize it's too much, I can take another brush that's clean, that'll just keep it slightly damp, and you can go in and you can brush it off. So it's almost like using an eraser. If your wash though isn't going to be as forgiving, you can still wipe it out and wipe it away depending on the type of wash you're doing, if you're using oils or if you're just using regular wash or whatever. So it really boils down to how you want to fix things, because either way there's going to be mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, but whichever you're more comfortable with fixing. And from a finished model standpoint, when you're doing the edge highlights, you're basically putting that last bit of, this is the overall appearance of the model. If you put all that work into the model with the edge highlights and then you put the wash on it and it takes it down too far, then your edge highlights didn't do everything they could have done for you. So it could almost end up being more work. Again, none of what I'm saying is the way you have to do it. I'm just thinking out loud of what I would think about when I was painting a model and I get to the step where, all right, maybe I need to reinforce the shadows, so I'm going to do a wash, and then I'll do the edge highlights. So that's just my personal musings on how to do that. But you can see now this gray on black almost looks, well, because this top panel was mostly gray anyway on the shoulder, but it almost looks more, so it's not black, it's gray. So, I mean, if I was like, hey, this is my gray Griffin, you'd be like, yep, it is. From this angle, if like, hey, this is my black Griffin. Yep, yes it is. So. All right, we're coming up on 2 hours. I don't know if Bushido is live yet, or if he's working out his stream. We'll just, we'll go here for a bit and see what happens. Has anybody else got any comments or questions or fun stuff they read about? Augustine, are you still with me and enjoying this, or are you just tired of hearing my voice?
No, I will never be tired of hearing your voice.
Well, I'm no Tex, that's for sure, but I'm glad I'm not wearing people out. Yeah, I don't see Kevin in the Discord chat yet.
Zero Dog was with us for a few moments.
Oh, here he says right here, he says he's ready to go. Awesome. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna finish this for now. I can take a little break, and I'll jump in on Discord audio with Kevin if he's gonna have that running. Augustine, I don't know if you're planning on staying. If you are, I'll see you over there. Gotta get your voice sexy smooth there, sir. All right. But yeah, to everyone that is in the stream right now, I appreciate you hanging with me and watching. And I wish we were at GenCon, hanging out, chatting, painting and talking about the diorama and having all the good times and shaking hands and meeting folks for the first time. I love that aspect. I really wish we could have had that this year. I look forward to next year because it'll make up for this one for sure. I hope you guys enjoyed the chat and the instruction and the showing off of things. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I know it's in the morning for a lot of you, but I had a great time, and I hope to do some more streams. I will never have a regular stream schedule, but anytime I'm available to do it and announce it, I will definitely do my best to try. So, subscribe for the notifications. If you're over on Facebook, CamoSpecs, Battletech CamoSpecs online Facebook page, I always post if we're going live or selling auctions and things like that. That's the place to go for that. And then several other Battletech outlets of Facebook pages have usually a repost or so. We've also got the Discord, so feel free to join us there. And thanks a lot, everybody.
Shutdown sequence initiated.